HBO's classic gangster show The Sopranos contains a wide variety of characters like Tony Uncle Al, Tony Uncle Johnny, and Uncle Philly my ass. Some supporting characters are staples of the show and for a season or two like Richie Aprile, and others, surprisingly, given they make a strong impact during their time, are only in this series for a single episode, like the stripper Tracy, Long John Silver, and the laundromat owner Kim. Award winner JT Dolan, a screenwriter and a friend of Chrissy's from Rehab. First appearing in the episode In Camelot, Dolan introduces himself at an AA meeting as an alcoholic, an addict, a TV writer, and a douchebag. He credits Christopher with helping his recovery, and after mentioning to Chrissy that he would like to play some poker, Chris asks if he wants to play a real game. Very soon, JT borrows money of I will not enable you. When he's unable to pay back in time, Chris and little Paulie pay him a visit and beat him, taking his car as partial payment. Seeing Dolan lament losing his treasured car and Chrissy comforting him,
"So you'll get another one?"
There's something quite sick about it all, as Chris is the one taking his car. It's his debt to Chris that has made him relapse and why he needs to go back to rehab, and Chris is like,
"You can do this, man. I have faith in you."
Playing the part of a supportive friend, not the vicious mobster he is, and he then lectures him about falling off the wagon. It reminds me of a line from The Thick of It.
I feel I'm in a therapy group being run by my own rapist.
It also reminds me of Chris in The Wire, comforting his victims before he kills them. Another thing it might remind you of is a certain storyline concerning degenerate gambler Davey Scatino. We've discussed him in a previous video, but he's a guy who Tony targeted, knowing he had a gambling problem, and once he hooked him with debt, he bled him dry in a bust-out. I wonder if Chrissy intentionally set up JT, who initially had been gambling responsibly at a racetrack, who had no interest in Chrissy's mob life. Unlike the likes of Jon Favreau, he wasn't using Chris's life for his scripts or anything, he just saw him as a friend, a fellow recovering addict, and a gym buddy. I wouldn't put it past Chrissy to use JT as a shoulder to cry on when he's in pain, and humour JT's own issues, but ultimately see an opportunity to make some money out of him. The mafia instincts never leave these guys, it's in their nature, as Tony says to Davey, and surely Chris, even subconsciously perhaps, recognised JT as a potential mark, a target to be ostracised. Chris says he will not enable him, but that's exactly what he did. And that's the kind of line you might hear from Mr. Mob Boss, who was always looking to distance himself and offload guilt when he was involved in activities that hurt others, something which we discussed in the T1000 video. Maybe on a level Chris was genuine. He was quoting all the recovery steps and mantras, but eventually his true nature as an exploiter emerges. The cobwebs are now removed. Occasionally, The Sopranos has had meta elements in the show, such as when after female critic Linda Stasi slammed the show for not having enough mob violence, the character Lorraine Caluzzo was created and Johnny Sack specifically mentions,
"Whack this one, whack that one, never enough body count for Lorraine."
In a similar vein, I wonder if the character of JT was a vehicle for the showrunners to grind their axes or make industry-related jokes. David Chase had a volatile relationship with many of the writers of the show, and I'm sure he got a chuckle out of JT's introduction as a TV writer automatically making him a douchebag. Chase is also well known for initially trying to break into the movie industry but was unable to do so. He looked down on television as an art form, which is a delicious irony seeing as though he ended up creating arguably the greatest television show ever made. Even still, throughout the course of the show, he suffered with self-doubt and reservation over the show. And this adds a meta layer to the scene where Dolan tries to pawn off his Emmy award, but the clerk only offers a few dollars for it, saying it's no Academy Award. There's this too.
An entire room full of writers, and you did nothing!
The character also acts as an example for Christopher and for us, in that being a movie and TV screenwriter is not all it's cracked up to be. He returns in season 6, working as a full-time professor of a writer's class, where he's kidnapped by a criminal mastermind and taken to Chrissy, apparently having failed to deliver a script. Eventually the script becomes Cleaver, which is pitched by JT and later shot and screened in a premiere where Dolan is embarrassed in front of his girlfriend after not being mentioned by Chris when he's thanking people responsible for the film. To add insult to injury, Chris forces JT to tell Tony the mob boss in the movie and his shenanigans is not based off him. In the episode Walk Like a Man, Chrissy relapses after being humiliated by Paulie, and he heads over to JT's apartment where he pours his heart out, rambling about what he's done for the mob, toying with the idea of flipping. The irony is lost on Chris that he says things like, "You think he's your friend, all these pricks," when he's treated Dolan like utter trash. Dolan doesn't want to hear what Chris has to say and wants him to sober up, advising drinking coffee, calling his sponsor, going to a meeting, but Chris goes on and on, still going this asshole, desperate to receive pity or understanding from Dolan, until Dolan says,
Chris, you're in the mafia.
Leading Chris to calm down, turn to the door, but suddenly swing back and shoot JT dead with a single shot. Dolan went from writing Law & Order the SUV to becoming a Law & Order episode. I guess he made that coffee to go. JT may have had a smug side to him, he's a bit of a poseur, but this is one of the most tragic deaths on the show. Not only is JT a civilian who helped Christopher in his time of need, but he was back on his feet. His debts were cleared, he was writing again, he had projects he wasn't using, and you can see him panic with Chris blurting out all this information about Adriana and Ralph and whatnot, knowing the implications if he hears. His final words, "Chris, you're in the mafia," is him cutting the rope between the two men. It's him saying he does not want anything to do with Christopher anymore. He does not want him in his life. But at that particular time, when Chris was all hot-blooded, drunk and volatile, it wasn't the best way to get this message across. Christopher had just been humiliated by Paulie. He turned and saw the entire crew was laughing at him. Even the strippers were laughing. And Tony Soprano, his leader, his mentor, the man he's going to hell for, the man he lost the love of his life for, is laughing along with the rest of them. Chris had never truly found his place in life, whether as a mobster, a screenwriter, a male model, and here he sees that he has no true friends among the mob. They don't respect him, what he's sacrificed, his struggles with addiction. So he goes to JT, who would understand, who he mistakenly thinks is his friend, because he's completely blind to how he has abused Dolan. And when Dolan says his piece, Chrissy, it's the straw that broke the camel nose's back. It's the one rejection he can't handle, or more to the point, the one rejection where he can do something about it. Chrissy knows there's no chemical solution to a spiritual problem and so shoots JT in the head because he can't sanction a hit on the entire Jersey crew. It reminds me of Marlowe getting humbled in The Wire at a poker game, and in his next scene he reasserts his self-confidence and feelings of power by taking it out on the security guard. But in his own sick way, I think Christopher did see Dolan as a friend. He, through Cleaver, was also Chris's pathway to a meaningful life outside of the mob where he could be respected and appreciated. But now that wasn't the case anymore. His last hope had rejected him, and he realizes he is completely alone in the world. In the end, you die in your own arms, or with Tony suffocating you. Christopher was a wise guy with big dreams and an even bigger nose. And by shooting Dolan, he symbolically shoots those dreams dead, because JT represents Christopher's dreams. He's like an alternate Chrissy. He was an addict like Chris, but he turned that around, whereas Chris is using even in his final episode. Chris wants to be a scriptwriter. Dolan was that. Chris had an unstable, violent life, but Dolan was in the regularness of life. Chris seals his fate by shooting Dolan. It's the character subconsciously acknowledging that his dreams are no more. The hope for a straight man Christopher outside of the mafia and clean is gone. And to drive the point home, in the following episode where Chris dies, he is using again and is wearing a cap. The only other time he did so being his first appearance, symbolizing that Chrissy regressed back to his original state. He never progressed, he never had an arc, something he was chasing throughout the show. He may have even consciously acknowledged this, in that when Dolan distances himself from Chris, saying he is in the mafia, stating the blunt reality that they are different, Chris might have thought, "Oh, I'm in the mafia, am I? Want to go down that road? Well, you want to see the mafia? Here. Bang." If Dolan doesn't want to be friends anymore, there's no benefit to Chris. He can't come to him as a friend, as a fellow addict. He can't squeeze money out of him because the man's debts are repaid. So now all that he is a liability. There's also his image to consider as a tough guy, the strong, silent type. He's been vulnerable here with Dolan, and nobody can know. He cried like a woman in the acting class too, and ended up beating the guy he was acting with for witnessing his moment of weakness. And him being vulnerable with Paulie is what started this whole thing in the first place. There was also a sobering split second. You can see it in Chris, a moment of realization. Dolan puts things into perspective. He's just realized how much JT Dolan now knows, what he could tell the cops, what he could tell Tony, who he's already spoken to. From Chris's point of view, who wouldn't be in the know about all these internal demons he had that we've just discussed, that's why he killed Dolan. He simply knew too much by that point. That's what Chris would tell himself. The death of JT Dolan also has a narrative function. If you remember, almost every wise guy main character who dies in the show kills someone before they do, as if the showrunners want to remind us before they die, and we feel sorry for them, that they are scum who kill. Puss kills the Elvis dude, the parade float kills the guy whose car he crashes into. It reminds us what they are. And Chrissy's number was up. So what better character for him to take out to remind us he is scum than his dear friend JT Dolan? The episode ends with a drunk Chris stumbling home to a garden destroyed by Paulie. The lawn is in chaos, but Chris takes a moment to straighten one small plant. It's a powerful scene, very allegorical. This is a man surrounded by destruction and devastation who has caused destruction, but deep down, there was potential there. There was compassion. There was a man who could have had class, could have been a contender, could have been somebody, instead of a bum, which is what he is. But the sick irony is that the tree is already dead. It doesn't matter what Chris does to it. He can't fix his wrongs. The roots are corrupted and there's no coming back. There's also the song that's playing, The Valley, which contains the lyric, "They could have gone, but instead they chose to stay," like Chris did when he had that opportunity to run away with aid. So this video is getting a bit long, so we'll end it there, but there is one more thing I wanted to mention. This scene mirrors the one where Chris talks to Jon Favreau. In that one, it's Jon who wants to talk about the mob and hear Chris's secrets, and a drunk or high Chris pulls out a gun and playfully points it at Jon. In Dolan's scene, it's Chris who wants to talk mob dirty details, and Dolan doesn't want to hear it, and Chris pulls out a gun and shoots him. Christopher forces Dolan to take credit for Christopher's idea about the mob boss, and Favreau is the one who steals Chris's ideas. Additionally, Favreau is playing himself in the show. Tim Daly doesn't play himself, but is mentioned by Noah's father. I'm not quite sure what is represented by this, but it's interesting to note these two mirror characters, the sacred and the profane. So I just wanted to make this video to get your thoughts. It was an idea, I don't know, who knows where they fucking come from. Isaac Newton invented gravity because some asshole hit him with an apple. Why do you think Chris killed JT Dolan? Let me know in the comment section below, subscribe to the channel and enjoy your success.